morning. Welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 12th day of March 2024. And welcome to our show today. I'm going to get right at it because we have got so much to talk about today. John and I were talking before we got online, and we've got so much to do. I think we could fill like 6 hours with ways of handing people their tail right now, and 17 ways to Taiwan. We can screw up their plans, and we're going to start out talking about the letters and the communications that John has written, because he's kind of a badass. Okay. I just got to say that right now. I mean, you not only write the letters, you get them people removed, right? Which is kind of cool. Tell the story about the people that resigned after your letters, because this is a great story.
Well, I'm not going to take credit for getting them to resign. Although
I'll give you credit.
When we had this COVID-19 nonsense going on, and we had the director of DEH or MDHHS, Robert Gordon, and when you take a look at the letter, you'll see it. It wasn't certified to him. He was the director of MDHHS, which was the Health and Human Services of Michigan. And the letter arrived because it was certified. So I followed when it got to the post office, when it finally got to him, and it got to him on Friday, December and November. This is November 30, 2020, when the letter was written. And that Friday it got to him. Monday, he resigned. So I don't know if the letter had anything to do with it, and I won't take credit for that. But it's a coincidence.
I don't believe in coincidences. So what else? What other letters have you written?
I wrote a major document, my court document for the Internal Revenue that I was fighting, and it went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court kind of kicked it out, said, "No, we're not going to give you cert." So I then turned around and sent it to Anton Scalia. It arrived in his office by signature on Friday, and on Saturday he was killed. On Saturday he was assassinated. Again, I don't know if my document had anything to do with it, and I'm not going to take credit for it. But it's a coincidence that it just happened that particular period of time. The document that I sent to him had a lot of stuff regarding the Internal Revenue, regarding our rights to not pay an income tax, because that's not our responsibility, and our income, the personal income tax that the IRS has pushed upon us, is unconstitutional. I had a 108-page document stating that, with all the law. I mean, it was hard to say that they couldn't prove it one way or the other. In fact, when I did finally file it for a claims for refund, the IRS did not enter it into their official transcript. So when I got to court, the court said, "Well, you never filed your claims for refund, and therefore we're not going to look at it." However, I had the green card, and I had the certified number and the date of delivery and all that stuff. So it got to the Internal Revenue, but the Internal Revenue failed to file it. And then the DOJ, the criminal DOJ, said that, well, I didn't file it in my official transcript, and therefore it never happened. But in fact, who was supposed to be watching the Internal Revenue? Who was supposed to actually go and find out if it was in fact filed, and if the Internal Revenue did not do their job? Well, that's the DOJ, but they didn't do that. Instead, they said that I was the one at fault, and therefore my case was dismissed.
Well, that's the way it goes when you control everything. You control the narrative, judge, jury, and executioners there.
Yeah.
In the departments that don't exist.
That was I got to push her name out there again. That was Linda Parker. She's a criminal. She's not a judge. She's a criminal in a black robe. and she allowed the DOJ to get away with what they got away with because she's part of the syndicate, part of the criminal syndicate. But she's not alone. There's a whole bunch of other judges. I could give you a whole list of names. But that's the story. So do my letters have any merit and consequence? Yeah, I think they might have.
There's a whole bunch of people right now that are questioning why they're even paying taxes at all, since we've got no say in where they go. And these morons just sent like another 100 million or $100 billion down to, is it 100 million down to Haiti?
Yeah.
And then, so now we've got another, pit of despair to try to get involved. And I feel sorry for the people down there. I did look up, there are a lot of references to cannibalism and cannibal gangs going on down there.
Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton, we know that for a fact. But I think some of this stuff with the cannibal gangs that they're saying are running the streets down there, I'm not sure how much truth is in that, or if they're recycling video from, say, other places. I've seen a couple of them that allegedly are like 2 years old and not from Haiti, that they say is not there. So I don't know. I'm questioning that right now, because I don't think that we can believe anything. And that the guy that they're calling Barbecue, that is heading up the resistance or whatever, the criminal gangs is what they're saying. I'm not sure he's a bad guy yet, because the name came from, I believe, his mother, because he liked to barbecue when he was a kid. He does have a Masonic necklace, it looks like he wears. But I'm staying out of the weighing in on this one for a while, because I think that there's an awful lot of political posturing on this issue in order to money launder more funds down there and hide what the Clintons were actually doing. Because I can tell you what, if we don't look at this and say this is all about taking kids, we're probably off base, because that's what they do. That it's money laundering and it's trafficking.
That's right.
It's all about what it's about.
That's exactly what it's about.
Well, and I'm really interested. I'm going to go ahead and throw this letter up that we're going to talk about first here. And okay. I think this is a good way to go. What's that?
I guess it's a good start.
It's a good start. And so we're going to go to this letter here. And this is how John started this letter. And here's Robert Gordon right here with his name and address. So here's the format that we have to work with and who it's to. So from and to, and look at how it's indented differently.
Well, basically,
some of that's a spacing, but I get it. Some of it's a spacing.
See the certified letter numbers there. Those are important to have. And important for if you're going to send a document to a public functionary, you got to send it certified. If you think you're going to send them an email or make a telephone call and it's going to make a difference, that's a waste of time. You got to do it by letter form, and you got to send it certified, because once you send it certified, then it can be used in the court.
Okay.
So you got to send it certified to prove that you sent it, and then you can use it if you're.
I'm showing everybody where the numbers are. So John keeps freezing up this morning. So go ahead.
I don't get it either. I had some problems listening to X22 this morning also. So I don't know what the deal is.
We've been looking at the internet security and protection. And I'm going to tell you what, there's been so many parts of the internet that's been down for the last 2 weeks that none of this is a coincidence. And, it started out with the carriers and the cell phone companies, but also media companies. And now it's sporadic, but it's everywhere. Yes, the most reliable when all of this was knocked out, honestly, has been Brandenburg News Network. We were able to keep that up even when everything else was down. So, yay us.
Notice how I start out, because the most important part of the of being a public functionary is their oath of office. So I start out by saying I'm very concerned regarding your negligent and or purposeful disregard of your oath of office and your order requiring masks and wearing masks in the state of Michigan. That wasn't as important as the oath of office. That's very important because Alan Dershowitz, that idiot attorney who thinks who's got so much publicity, says that, oh, everybody violates their oath of office. That's just a given.
Yeah, no, it's not a given. If they're violating their oath of office, I can guarantee you it's because government is too big and there's so many rules that they created that one rule negates another one, and or so he's probably right to a certain extent, but it's because they're not doing their duty and cutting back the government so that it can be lawfully followed.
Well, you're being very nice to him. I don't think so.
Well, I'm not being nice to them. I'm just saying that they need to get off their tails and start cutting back the government so they don't have a lame excuse.
When you swear an oath, that means you swear an oath to that particular office, to that particular job, to those particular duties. Remember, you're a public functionary, as my letter states, public functionary. You're not an official. You're not a leader. You're a public functionary. You are doing a function in government, and that's it. And so that's how we have to address them. You're a public functionary. And so we say over here that your purposeful disregard for your oath of office, very critical stuff. That's where we should hang our lawsuits on. If you violated your oath of office, you're a usurper. You're not overreaching. You're usurping authority never granted. That's a criminal act. And so that's how we have to address it. And so, I don't pull any punches here. This is all laid out as it should be. So if we read on a little further, Oakland County and or Wayne County, because I was dealing with both counties and their health and human services of those counties. So I listed them both. I wasn't dealing with Macomb at the time, but it could have been added to there if we wanted to, as well as other counties in the state of Michigan. So I kind of picked up everything there. It is very concerning to me because the Michigan Supreme Court has ruled on October 1, 2020, that Governor Whitmer executive orders were declared big letter was in fact the case
unconstitutional. Why did you put those in big letters? That you froze up for just a minute.
I put them in big letters because it was in fact by the state of Michigan Supreme Court that her act using executive orders regarding masks and distancing and all that other stuff was unconstitutional. Supreme Court said it April 30, 2020. So I just brought that information back out so they could see it. It should also be noted that her executive order never had any force of law upon the citizens of Michigan. Executive orders have no force of law against the citizens of the state of Michigan, ever. Her executive
only against government employees, correct?
Only against her department, executive department. If she could use executive orders and make rules and regulations for anything and everything, then she's the dictator. Because then there's no check and balance. She could do whatever she wanted to with the legislative branch and the judicial branch because it would be an executive order. Or she could come down on the Michigan citizens by, we're going to have a Department of Gun confiscation, for example, because I can make an executive order. She can't do that. She has no authority to make any law of any kind. And people need to understand that. So when she said that you have to do social distancing and or that you had to wear a mask, she had no authority to do that at all, none, because it's an executive order. She could tell the people in her department Anybody that works in my office has to wear a mask. That she can do if she wants to. But she cannot tell you and me to do that. That's not her job. That's not her function. That's not her job title. She has no authority of any kind to do that. And the Supreme Court knew that and ruled so. So her sworn duty, her oath of office, is to uphold the United States Constitution of Michigan, and protect our freedoms and not our safety. It was Benjamin Franklin that said, those of you that give up a little bit of your freedom for safety deserve neither. So here again, I'm kind of pointing that out. Protecting our freedoms, that's what her job is. Life, liberty, and property. Life, liberty, and our pursuit of happiness. That's what her job is, not our safety. The governor has stepped way beyond her scope of employment and usurped authority never granted to her by her power, delegated to her by her office, by the Michigan Constitution. And therefore, her mandates always were and still are null and void since the inception. Couldn't make it any clearer than that. And notice that this was not written to Whitmer. This was written to one of her department heads, to the department heads. And also I wrote it to Evans, who was Wayne County executive, because he was kind of sticking his head up out of the clouds to try to execute authority he never had either. It has become very apparent that you are picking up this political agenda of the COVID-19 mass hysteria, which has no basis in fact, science, or law regarding a deadly virus. It is further interesting that your illegal mandates followed upon political Democratic Party lines, the Democratic Party lines. It is further indicated that the nonsensical directives have been general public in its state of mass hysteria, and that you are able to impose your demands through your fears and intimidations. This mass psychological hysteria you have created and continue to perpetuate is unconscionable in nature against the unsuspecting public and an affront against humanity. It is obvious that you are using draconian measures and used for the Spanish flu pandemic of 1917 and 1918 to wear a mask. However, if you had conducted a proper research, you would determine that it was held that the masks did not protect the public back in 1917, 1918, and is also not protecting the citizens in 2020. I did a research on the pandemic in 1917, 1918, and learned all of the things that the medical profession was trying to do to prove this so-called virus existed and that it was deadly and so on and so forth. And the medical profession failed in every aspect. They had people wear masks, it didn't do anything. They had vaccinations, it didn't do anything. They had, I don't know if they did social distancing, but they even had people breathing on each other, the healthy versus the unhealthy, and they were breathing on each other, trying to get that virus to transfer to the healthy person. It didn't happen. None of that happened. That was all a lie. And in 1917, 1918, all of the draconian measures that they tried to put upon us in 2020 didn't work. And that's historical. All you have to do is go back and read a little history. But as you know, when I was teaching history, I was telling the kids, if you don't know history, you're going to repeat it. And so we did.
We sure have. We repeated it, not just in that area, but in and so many others. I mean, Marxist, the satanic Marxists, because that's exactly what they are. This has been repeated over and over again. It's not just a political ideology; it's a religion, and that's the problem. That's what I have with the lines that are blurred, with both religion and with religion and with political ideologies. You see that where religions have been hijacked into a military operation, and military operations have been hijacked into a religious standpoint in order to mislead and confuse people.
Let's just say let's not use the word military, but let's use the word
political. Weaponized political
Weaponized.
activities. How's that? I shouldn't say military, but weaponized. Thanks for the correction. Yeah, weaponized political activities.
Make it sound like us guys in the military were doing the wrong thing. We're not. We're here to protect the world.
Well, and that's absolutely true. And I always appreciate the correction, because if I have a friend who is a Marine, and one time I said he was a Marine. He corrected me. He's like, nope, I'm always a Marine. He said, once a Marine, always a Marine. And I'm like, okay, did not know that. And I appreciated the correction from that, because, it's like, there's a whole culture within the military that people who haven't been in the military are a little lost. It's a little lost on the rest of us, until somebody actually takes the time. Not that we don't want to. It's like, if there's small things that are big things in the military, which we might not pick up on the nuances and such. So always appreciate the correction.
Good. I don't mean to correct, but
no, you have to. I mean, that's where everybody cannot be above being corrected. If we need something that's corrected, I mean, think about what your mom and dad did when you were little. They corrected you in order. Let's just say you used bad grammar, or you had bad manners or something like that. And mom and dad would come along and they would correct you so that you didn't repeat it, and that you learned to be a little bit more refined and not such a savage. I don't know about you, but all kids are savages at some point in time.
Well,
we all have to learn.
People in the mind, yeah.
I was a savage. I'm still a savage a little bit, but and I know for sure you're a savage. So we're still working on it. Work in progress here.
All right. The next paragraph, I think, was the paragraph that was the clincher, so to speak. The bigger and more disturbing fact is that the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services has no basis in law to even exist. There is no Michigan constitutional provision for this department to have been created. See Norton versus Shelby County, which says an unconstitutional act is not a law. It furthermore, and I'm going to just stop for a second here, furthermore states that you can never create a de facto office. And that is the critical thing that the legal profession, the judges are afraid of, because the minute that becomes publicly known that these de facto offices that have been created by the state of Michigan and by the federal government do not exist because they are not constitutional, the whole house of cards is going to fall down, because in Norton versus Shelby County spells out how a republic is supposed to behave.
All I can say, John, is it's too bad that John Tater or Donna Brandenburg didn't get in as governor, because I'm going to tell you what, you and I would be start the clock, 2 weeks flat, it's done. Notification starts on rapid fire.
Okay, so moving on, an unconstitutional act is not a law. So the Department of MDHHS is a rogue department operating without any de jure constitutional authority, with people occupying a de facto office being created by an unconstitutional act, and therefore such office does not exist. MDHHS is therefore exercising authority which could never have been delegated to you, nor your governor, nor to Governor Whitmer under the present Michigan Constitution of 1963. It's not in there. You've got to read the Constitution.
Which is also unlawful.
If you know your Constitution.
Lost John. He'll be back. Hello, John. Let's see. He's froze up again. Let's see if we can try that again. Let's see if he can come back in. Going to be a little patient here. This is what happens with real news for.
Yeah, if you know your Constitution. Well,
there you go.
63. Okay.
There you go. Let's try that again. If you know your 63 Constitution, you got it nailed, right?
That's right.
Okay.
All the lockdowns, the mask mandates, the social distancing are beyond any authority ever permitted by the Constitution, and therefore are illegal acts of usurpation. All the departments, as well as Governor Whitmer, will be held responsible for their violations of their oath of office, critical oath of office, as well as their acting outside of any authority they may believe they have. Be it further noted that the Department of MDHHS, as well as all other employees, are not immune from liability when they step beyond their scope of employment. And since there has been no de jure office created, you are a usurper, and hence you have no protection from any office that does not exist. And then I quote the famous lines of Norton versus Shelby County: an unconstitutional act is not a law, confers no rights, it imposes no duties, it affords no protection, it creates no office. It is in legal contemplation as inoperative as though it has never been passed. So then we go on to say, I have listed a video called Crimes Against Humanity, which would be very prudent for you to watch. And I put it in there as a BitChutes one, because the truth is being revealed and your civil liability is increasing for perpetrating this fraud upon the public. Plausible deniability, which is what all of these public functionaries try to use, and Biden is going to probably try to use when it comes time for his hanging. He's going to say, "Oh, I didn't know about that."
Well, it's like Nestle going, with the fraudulent registration of voters and such that was going on. I don't know. I turned it over to the state police, and what did they do? I'm like, that is a child's defense, Nestle. That is a childish and non-defense. You are guilty. You are guilty of allowing a fraudulent election in the state of Michigan.
Yep, and that's why we have to put plausible deniability. It can no longer be effective for you. It can no longer be a defense because you have been informed. If your action continues, you may need to hire competent counsel to defend your position in a court of competent jurisdiction. By the way, to further expand facts that you may be unaware of at the time, you may be held personally liable for damages as an individual who is acting outside the laws of the state of Michigan. And I quote Scher versus Rhodes, so they can look that up. And I write exactly what Scher says. Scher versus Rhodes says. So there's no question. There is no immunity within a de facto office, and an individual has no immunity when he or she usurps authority never granted. The reason, once again, that you are occupying a de facto office that cannot ever exist and does not exist, and that your action taken under the color of law cannot protect you because you have no scope of employment. Your office does not exist. And again, spelling it out to let them know that they have violated all of humanity, all of the laws of humanity, because they're occupying something that isn't there.
Did you intend it for it to say, it says your office does not exit? Is it supposed to be exist?
Exist.
Okay. Typo, guys.
Typo. I missed.
That's okay. No worries.
I haven't read 2 or 3 times, and I still miss it sometimes.
That's okay. You're doing. The thing of it is that the point being is that you're out there fighting every day, and I just applaud you for all the work you put into everything. And I could care less about a typo at this point, because half the people can't even, won't even show up to vote. Our voting is so horrible right now. They don't even show up for that, which is a shame. It's terrible.
Well, we could and I will work on a letter this week regarding the voting machines, the voting process, and we'll lay it on. And I think it has to go to the legislative branch too.
I do too. I think we need to go to every single township clerk, and we should be presenting this in front of the township boards to tell them we demand you remove the machines all the way across Michigan. I think we should go to the legislature and demand that they are removed.
Yes, but the problem is that we need more than just you and me to do this.
Well, you know what? That's why we're here. We're building a team right now. And I've got thousands of people in my contact database. I mean, honestly, if I decided to just pull the pin on this thing, we could honestly have it all over the state. And there's enough people that are not wasting their time in these ridiculous political parties deciding who's got the best ideas for a coffee clutch, instead of fighting things in the who's this person, who's that person, and how are we going to hide their crimes and give them an excuse on the way out, instead of getting our tails out there and actually doing something. And I think it's going to take a whole bunch of us. So everyone out there, raise your hand. I'll help, Donna and John. I'll help. And we'll do this together.
If we get enough people marching in the same direction, we will be able to fix the process.
Yeah, they won't be able to stand, because we stand on the lawful process. We're not out there protesting like a bunch of idiots out in the street. We're going after them with what works, which is telling them the law, the lawful process, and you either follow the law or you're removed. And we're not going to ignore your crimes.
That's right. All right. We can continue on a little longer. We're almost done here. The wearing of a mask deprives the body of depleted, needed, or
desperately needed oxygen.
Desperately needed oxygen. The rebreathing of one's own carbon dioxide does not allow the body to expel toxins which have been accumulating throughout the day. Wearing masks is therefore detrimental to anyone who wears the mask for any extended period of time. The lack of oxygen will create greater harm to the mask wearer's health that they will have to deal with in the future. Are you ready to accept the responsibility that your mandates have created? These are well-known medical facts.
Do you want me to continue reading? That's a lot of reading for one person to do.
Well, my problem is the light in the house,
Oh, sure.
It's kind of reflecting funny on so I'm missing some of the wording because of the light. I'll continue.
Continue on. This is awesome.
I expect a public announcement to your mandate where a mistake. Yeah, go ahead and read it, because I'm seeing kind of goofy words here.
I expect a public announcement that your mandates were a mistake and that you are lifting any requirements of mask wearing, social distancing, and any form of limitations to restaurants, bars, or other establishments that are used for public gathering, or you will face violations of the Michigan Constitution as well as of the United States Constitution. Since time is of the essence as concerns the continual erosion of the freedoms of the citizens of the great state of Michigan, I hereby request that a written response to the contents of this letter be received by myself in the next 21 days, and or a phone call or email will suffice. Thank you for your attention to the contents of this letter and your anticipated prompt and timely response. I love your letters. Respectfully submitted, John Joseph Tater. And here you go. We've got C.C. Whitmer, Nessel, and Benson. And you also sent them letters certified.
Yeah, now understand I did not get a reply, and I didn't expect a reply. It would have been great had I got a reply. But this was only one letter that went out. What was his name?
Gordon
Gordon
Yeah.
resigned. Robert Gordon resigned.
Yeah.
And so I let it go because I really I didn't follow any of this stuff. I never wore a mask. If I wanted to go somewhere, I went somewhere. I had a couple people tell me I had to put a mask on. I told them to put it where the sun don't shine. And I never wore a mask. So it didn't really affect me because I wasn't, it's like I wear my Trump hat all the time, expecting somebody to say, that's a bad hat. But everybody says, that's a great hat. I love your hat. So, I'm looking for a little bit of conflict with people so we could have a discussion. I would like a person wearing a mask saying, hey, you got to wear a mask to protect yourself and protect me and protect others. I like a conversation with them. See if they get into a conversation, but they never do. So they're cowards, most of them. They wear masks because they wear masks. They don't want to get involved. And so they play the game that the public functionaries demand them to do, and they just behave that way. Well, I'm not that way. I want to talk with you. You're wearing a mask. I don't want to start the conversation because then it'll sound like I'm picking one. But I me and say, hey, I don't like your hat. I don't like Trump. Here's why.
John froze up again.
Anyway, so we'll pick.
I think your internet's having a hard time keeping up here, John. This is what happens when you have, yeah, there you are. You're back again. And now you're not. Let's see if he starts it back up again in a minute. We'll be patient.
I'm back.
There you go. I'm back.
I don't know if it's AI clicking us out when we say things that they don't want to hear.
Could be. Yeah. All you got to do is say the word China and watch what happens half the time. They'll blink you out with that real quick. Or CIA is a terrorist organization, and so is the FBI. FBI, CIA, your terrorist organizations. Good guys inside of there. Get rid of the bad guys, and we'll give you big kudos. So nothing's ever pure. We think that just even listening to what people say, you can have somebody who's a really good person who's just really misinformed, but has good intentions. And we've got to be really careful to listen to what people say and not create little sages or gurus that say, oh, I listen to everything this person says. Well, that's kind of dumb, really, because people are flawed, and that person may be trying to do their best, but what happens if somebody feeds them some misinformation and they're still in the process of trying to figure it out? Well, then you're getting led right down the primrose path there. You've got to think critically and believe everything and nothing all at the same time, and just wait until it works its way out.
I agree.
Just like that Cannibal Games down in Hawaii, in Haiti. Just wait on this one a little bit, because there's been enough footage from other areas years ago that I'm kind of not real sure about this.
The last rumor that I heard from X22 was that there were 91 people that are either indicted or that have written affidavits or whatever regarding Obama's and Biden's. And that information, they only have a couple of people that they brought out so far. And there are 91 more witnesses out there that are going to be released in time. So this
I typically think Dave is pretty accurate.
Yeah, I do too. I think he's got some inside info.
I've heard a lot more than that. I've heard into the hundreds of thousands of people, which I think is possible.
Could be.
Well, look at all the clerks. Look at the clerks in the state of Michigan that violated the law. And Charlotte said, have you told John about what happened in your area? And I said, yes, with the voting schemes, the machines here, that our clerk refused to honor my FOIA and destroyed evidence, destroyed election records before the allotted time.
Right.
What's that?
Maybe we need to write her a letter similar to this one, or write the clerks a letter similar to the one we just read.
I think both of them are a good idea, but if we even just start with one and go over these Dominion machines and any of electric machines, we might have a chance of writing the next election if we ever get there. And so maybe we finish this one and then go to the clerks, because the clerks broke the law.
On the other hand, maybe we should do the clerks first, because they're the ones that have the basic authority to do the right thing in the local offices. If they
broke the law if they destroyed the election records, which ours did.
Exactly my point.
She should be removed right now. I mean, there's no excuse for keeping her in place, because this is a matter of national security. Anybody that broke the law and destroyed the records, the election records, because of a letter by Jonathan Brader, director of election or director of the Board of Elections in Michigan, and chairman of the board of ERIC, needs to lose their job. And I mean, there's no leeway with this. They can't write it. They rigged the election. They were all involved in it, and they all need to be removed.
All right, here's what you can do for me.
Okay.
You can do me, because I don't know these names. I don't necessarily need the individual clerk, but Brader's name we need. He needs to be on the top of the list here.
Jonathan Brader sent a letter out, and I have a copy of the letter he sent to the clerks.
So send me that, so I see what it is. And we will respond to his letter, and we will respond to we'll put the general clerks in general, basically saying that if you have been a clerk and you have done the following, that you have usurped authority, never granted, that kind of thing. We'll use Norton, we'll use some of the other stuff, and we'll go after them.
Demand that they step down, resign, or face prosecution.
Exactly, something to that nature.
I think we need to do it, and I think that we need to have enough people that have some guts to get up in front of their township boards and their precinct, then the precincts they're in, and tell these people, you either follow the law and you get this thing right, or we're coming after you next to remove you from office, because you will be guilty of participating in a fraudulent election, a threat to national security. You broke the law, and you didn't follow what you're supposed to do.
Let's stop the national security comment, because
it is.
We got to call it something else, because that's the deep state, deep state language.
Okay.
Everything's national security, and
okay.
So if we go back to John F. Kennedy says that there's no secrets in a republic, in an open society. We can't have secrets. So we can't have national security that has to do with we have national security, but the Chinese were involved, and the Italians were involved, and all the other countries were involved in our election. Well, where's the national security? That is a term that they use, and it's kind of a nonsense term.
Okay.
So
I think it's a good term. I kind of like the term because it is, if we don't have secure elections, this is not, I mean, this is a big issue, as much as being attacked by a nuclear bomb.
It's just that the terminology, it's just the same thing as overstepping or
overreach.
It's, I mean,
what's a better term then, John?
I don't know. I'd have to think of something.
Okay, I'm sticking with mine until we get a better one.
I find that national security is being used against the public. It's all a matter of national security. Everything's national security. When in fact they hide stuff from the public and they call it national security. That's BS.
Well, they're a threat to national security because they're the terrorist organization right there, the ones that are sitting in the seats that have waged war on us. We
got to come up with a better.
All right, let's work on that.
Crap on that one. I just don't think it's a good one. I think it's been used against the public more than it's been used for the public. It's not used for America. It's used against America, against the American people.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
That's my only point.
Okay.
I'm
gonna flip it again. I feel like we should flip it against them. I brought that video up. Did you want to see that video a minute?
Which one?
The one with I can't think his name is full let's see, it's Rainer Fulmick. Is it Rainer Fulmick? How do you say his last name?
Is that the one that I cited in the letter?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could bring it up. I don't know how long. I don't remember how long it is, but yeah,
let's go see what we got here and try it. Okay, see what he has.
Hello, I am Rainer Fulmich, and I have been admitted to the bar in Germany and in California for 26 years. I have been practicing law primarily as a trial lawyer against fraudulent corporations such as Deutsche Bank, formerly one of the world's largest and most respected banks, today one of the most toxic criminal organizations in the world. VW, one of the world's largest and most respected car manufacturers, today notorious for its giant diesel fraud, and Courtenay Turner, the world's largest shipping company. We're suing them in a multi-million-dollar bribery case. I'm also one of 4 members of the German Corona Investigative Committee. Since July 10th, 2020, this committee has been listening to a large number of international scientists and experts' testimony to find answers to questions about the corona crisis, which more and more people worldwide are asking. All the above-mentioned cases of corruption and fraud committed by the German corporations pale in comparison in view of the extent of the damage that the corona crisis has caused and continues to cause. This corona crisis, according to all we know today, must be renamed a corona scandal, and those responsible for it must be criminally prosecuted and sued for civil damages. On a political level, everything must be done to make sure that no one will ever again be in a position of such power as to be able to defraud humanity or to attempt to manipulate us with their corrupt agendas. And for this reason, I will now explain to you how and where an international network of lawyers will argue this biggest tort case ever, the corona fraud scandal, which has meanwhile unfolded into probably the greatest crime against humanity ever committed.
Okay, so that's about an hour-long video. So
if you haven't seen it before, it is worth watching. That will leave one time that you understand that there are people out there that are following the correct behavior and trying to go against the deep state and in this case Corona-19. But we're faced with all of this kind of nonsense all the time. This happens to be one facet of what's going on. other things that have gone on, like the fraudulent election, like the Dominion machines, all of those little games that have been played upon us, and they're coming at us in all directions because they can overwhelm.
Okay, let's see what happens. This is crazy. Come on, John. Come back, John.
Us with a lot of stuff, we're not paying attention, and we're not.
You there? Let's see if we can bring you back here. Oh, there you go.
I don't really think it's the computers. I think it's the AI that's listening.
I think it's something, yeah. You know, and also I think, yeah, it's hard to tell, but you're right.
Amazing. Anyway, so it is. We have to pay attention to what's going on around us, and there's a lot of stuff going on around us. We just have to be aware of it. And once you understand things like Norton, once you understand the Constitution, then every time you listen to the news media, you pick up the lies. You say, wow, you know, this guy's way out to lunch. He's way off the rails. And you will understand what's going on, and you'll understand the landscape of this of what our country is all about at this point, and who's pushing the button, who's trying to push our buttons.
Well, I tell you, the thing that I've really come to the conclusion on is the reason why none of the election integrity stuff has worked is nobody's quoting the law. They're trying to tell everybody what they've done, how we got there, and trying to make people feel like, oh yeah, I know what's going on, and so I'm informed and we're winning. It's like, no, we're not. We haven't done a thing in this department because we haven't quoted the law on it. And I talked to, in fact, I talked to Pat Colbeck one day, and I said, yeah, that's how I feel too. I'm like, Pat Colbeck, I'm sorry, but it's like, Pat. I said to Pat, I said, we need to go and address this with the clerks. And he's like, we don't want to talk to the clerks. We want to keep them on our side. I'm like, what the heck side are you
on our side?
They're breaking the law. So how is it that you're giving them a pass? Because you don't want to offend them because we want them to want to work with us. That's bullshit. They weren't working with us and they broke the law. And so it's like, I'm sorry, call it out. It's like, you do not give somebody who broke the law at one little smidgen of space there. They either correct it or they get removed. That's it. They're either part of the criminal, the criminal machine, or they fight with us to write it. And somebody that says something like that, I'm sorry, that is beyond stupid. That comment was so beyond stupid to me. I can't even put words to it. Oh, we don't want to make them mad. We want them to work with us. Well, how's that working for you? It's not. It hasn't worked at all. None of the clerks are working with anybody because they threw this was before they destroyed the election records. And what I was told, and I gotta get it, get it quoted, but I'm kind of done with that guy right there. I'm going to tell you what.
I was done a long time ago with him.
I haven't said much, but I was done with him a long time ago too. It's like, I'm sorry that these people, we can quote stuff, we can write all kinds of things, but we can't get a damn thing done. But we keep writing and we keep getting in front of people talking. We've held office, but we haven't done a damn thing. And it's like, I sit there and I'm like, come on, people, we got to get smarter than this. And there's got to be a way to, and I'm learning too. Okay. We're all learning. But once you get it figured out, you got to call it out. You can't backtrack on this. The clerks broke the law. They violated their oaths of office. There was only about 2 or 3 of them in the state that actually followed the law. That's it. The rest of them broke the law by listening to Jonathan Brader, director of the Board of Elections.
You know that the old adage that they say, ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Exactly.
And here you have sworn an oath as a clerk to do certain things, to behave a certain way, to follow certain laws. And if you didn't know that law, there is no excuse for that. There's no way that you could say, well, plausible deniability. I didn't know that. No, you knew that law because you swore an oath to it. And if you didn't read that law and you didn't know that law before you swore an oath, well, shame on you. You're a pretty stupid person. You shouldn't be in that position.
Right. Well, and I mean, we're all learning together. I get it. But if you make a mistake, you've got to write it. But nobody's quoting the law. It's like I was looking at, the ones that I think are honest in the state. I think Joanne Bacali and Sandy Kiesel that are working with Election Integrity Force, and everybody that's been standing with Scott Ogney, they seem to be doing a pretty good job because they're going after it in a lawful way. Same thing with Peter Berninger from Wisconsin. I did a whole bunch of posts this week, and he was on last week. He quotes the law. They start lawsuits, and they're winning. They're finding ways to win. Some of the people that are doing the pro se stuff, I'm really impressed with the people that are out there by themselves doing pro se or pro per lawsuits, because they're quoting the law. They are not just saying, well, this is how they did it. We have, we've got ballot harvesting here. We've got the boxes here. We've got the NGOs, which is all an important thing. The next step, and probably stuff should happen at the same time. And I'm there too, because we're all learning. But once we learn, we got to change our methods. We have got to address these people in a lawful manner, which is what you do all the time.
You have to.
But you're the only one that's quoting it.
Well, I don't know if I'm the only one.
On Brandenburg News Network, I'm so proud. I'm so proud of us right now. It's like starting with having. And this is what happens when you start as a person who was never involved in the political machine or politics. Out of Brandenburg, all right, hated all of it. And you get in there and you have to unravel this criminal MO that's going on here. But once you start unraveling it, it's time to saddle up and ride, people. And we need more people. So if John and I put these letters together, and we get them out there for the clerks, the machines and such, I hope that everyone out there decides to take this seriously. And we're not asking you for money. We're asking you for your time and hopefully people with a little courage and guts to go in front of these people, serve them these letters, and help us follow through on this. So statewide, we can disrupt this whole Dominion fraudulent election bullshit out there if we go at it as a group of us going after the lawbreakers, because they are breaking the law.
That's right.
And the sheriffs that are not stepping in. Look at Darleaf. Darleaf has been grabbing onto this and carrying this forward too. And I'm telling you what, he's the only one I've seen out there in the state that's doing anything. I talked to him yesterday. Darren and I are, in fact, friends. And I talked to him yesterday, and I'm like, I'm so proud of you. And they called him to subpoena records. He's like, no, it's in the middle of an investigation.
Yeah.
And he that's what I saw.
I actually saw some article on him a couple of days ago, which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, he's standing up to them, and he's the only sheriff in the state that's doing it. Get off your tails, guys. You are the ones that are out there to ensure that the Constitution. Go give Dar a call. He'll tell you how to do this. He's been doing it for quite a while. He's a good man.
I wonder how many, and you didn't look up and find out how many sheriffs are attorneys.
No, I haven't looked at that.
We'll have to do that.
Okay, that's a good one. What I need to do is go to my open source, my OSINT guys that are out there doing open source intelligence gathering, and say, hey, let's pull this, see if we can find a quick way to pull this and find out how many are attorneys, because this is all important information.
Yeah, but it is. I know that they Brouchard, I think, is one that was it's been a while since I did that. So I think Brouchard was an attorney, and he was a sheriff for a while in Macomb County. or Oakland. There are a few others out there. I looked them up, and that's one thing I look at when I vote for somebody is what is your background? Are you an attorney? If you're an attorney, I don't want you as a legislator, and I don't want you as anybody in the executive department either. You could be in fact, you shouldn't even be the AG. The AG should be a private individual, and
neither should Secretary of State.
That's right. Well, Secretary of State definitely no, and Governor definitely no.
But that's what we got.
I know. We have all three of them are attorneys. They all work for the same club.
So I interviewed a whole bunch of the sheriffs in the state. Like, I mean, a lot of them. It was one of my goals to get to all of them. I didn't quite hit that goal because, you know, you aim high and try to hit it, but sometimes you can't get it accomplished because maybe they don't return your calls or whatever, or, you know, but you give it your best shot. And so, but Wickersham over there in Macomb was last on my list for impressive sheriffs. I personally, there's two of them in the state that I absolutely do not like. And I didn't like them because they didn't seem to give a crap about the Constitution. They didn't give a crap about what they were supposed to be upholding. And that's where I had the problem with people. The best answer was a guy up in I think it was Baraga County. And I said to him, I said, so what could a governor who serves the Constitution, a constitutional governor, I just use that term, do for you to help you? And his answer was absolutely nothing. Stay out of my county. I'm like, you just won the prize right there.
That's good.
Yeah, it was like run your county. You just won the prize. You're amazing. But there were so many of them. They didn't even understand the office and the questions I asked them. And what do I know? I was just a an everyday citizen, a Michigander who decided to jump in and try to figure it out. And they couldn't even answer the questions. And with trying to figure this out as I went, it was kind of shocking to me, quite honestly. And but anyhow, this guy running over in Macomb, I'm going to give him a shout out right now. His name is Terry McCoskey, and he's running for sheriff, and he needs your help. If you're over there in Macomb, I charge you with duty of at least putting this out on social media and helping him get elected, because you need to make a change. Last place sheriff in the state for Donna Brandenburg was Wickersham. And John is locked up again. Let's see if we get him back.
Didn't even say anything.
Yeah, you didn't say anything. Let's see if you come back again. Your face is still frozen there. So the AI probably didn't like that either, but that's okay. I'm going to say it again. Terry McCoskey. Oh, there you go. Terry McCoskey for sheriff in Macomb County. Go help this guy get elected. He's an amazing man. If you look at his background in what he's actually done, and listen to his plan on making sure that there's training for the deputies so they know what to do in different situations. He will uphold the Constitution. He believes in it, and that's pretty impressive compared to what I heard out of Wickersham's mouth.
Well, I know there's a lot of nonsense going on with him in the past, which I won't get into, but
didn't do anything, so I can say we should vote anybody that hasn't done anything, vote their sorry butts out. Well,
he has his own fiefdom there.
He has what?
He has his own fiefdom.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So.
Yeah, he's not working for anybody but himself. So, and the department.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure he's working for the department. He is working for himself.
Yeah, let me see if I can bring up Terry's website a minute. Courtney just jumped on. Let me play you in, Courtney. I'll add you in and you can talk with Jonathan.
Okay. Hey, how are you?
Good. We're beating up Michigan right now.
Oh, okay.
So let me see if I can get Terry's website up. Terry McCoskey. I don't know if he's got his website up because he was a state rep, but his
what's his background? He's not an attorney, is he?
No, he's not much attorney. And so I'm going to put Terry up here a minute. Here you go, Terry. And I don't know if he's out there watching. Probably not. He's busy campaigning, but to get in. But this is an honest man, and he's You know, I have a T-shirt, in fact, now. There's his wife, Anna. I love Anna. I'm totally in love with Anna. She's a good woman. And let me see if I can find his. He got into a special election in as a state rep, and they just, he's wonderful. So this is all of the things that he's really interested in changing, and his background. Let's see. Okay, here you go. I'm going to read it. In addition to serving as police officer in Detroit from 85 to 90, he began a 26-year career at the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, rising from a rank of deputy to working in the county jail as a patrol deputy. Then he went on into detective, sergeant, lieutenant in the jail with over 1,000 inmates, and back to Patrol Services Division, where he finally retired in 2016 as the deputy commander of parole services, not patrol services. During his career, he served as sergeant in the Narcotics Enforcement Unit and as agent in charge of an FBI multi-agency task force and a drug enforcement agency multi-jurisdictional task force for over 15 years. His unit's surveillance of drug smugglers apprehended some of the largest drug seizures in Macomb County's history. In addition to narcotics trafficking, dealt directly with human sex trafficking in Macomb and Oakland County's hotels and motels while on surveillance details. Firmly believe that an increase in law enforcement effort needs to be addressed in Macomb County, as is a border county allowing drug and human trafficking and child sex trafficking into the communities on the daily basis. He returned to work in the DEA's as senior financial investigator for the opioid strike task force to continue the fight against our nation's drug crisis. Unfortunately, most of us either know or have a friend or family member that is dealing with an addiction and has dealt with addiction or lost someone over this deadly epidemic. This has affected far too many people. Also witnessed and dealt with criminals taking advantage of our senior citizens with financial scams of unbelievable proportion, and that wiped out savings account, bankrupted our loved ones, and we need better informed citizen. And we need to go after these people that are doing it within our government. Say, I don't know, as in the conservators and the state-appointed court crime syndicate. Let's see. In closing, Michigan State Representative, having recently served in Lansing, I continue my civil servant duty and desire to service communities and provide solutions for Michigan's toughest challenges. By serving as a lawmaker in Lansing, I've gained valuable knowledge on how to address our citizen issues, create bills, obtain resources to bring back Macomb County, and it would be an honor to serve you as your family as sheriff of Macomb County. Okay, so this is pretty huge. He is amazingly qualified. And he is amazingly qualified. He's a good man. And I consider him a good friend also. And I wouldn't call him a friend if I didn't know him well and know that he's most definitely more qualified than what you got going over there in Macomb. So it's every single person's duty over there to get this guy elected. We only need one. We only need a couple of really good sheriffs in the state, and we can turn this whole state around. Just like we only need one governor. One governor would have been done in, say 2 weeks. So there we go. Well, thanks for being on today, John. This was amazing. This is one of my favorite shows that we've done.
I'm glad to like it.
Yeah.
I will work on a letter for next week.
There's your homework, John. John's homework assignment.
Yeah. And if I can put the letter together, hopefully the other people say, yes, we'll step up and use the letter and make it happen.
I love it. All right. Well, thanks, John. And then we'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you so much for coming on. I just absolutely adore you. You are one badass individual, and you have made, as an individual, you have done so much for this state and country that nobody really knows that you've done. And I just want to thank you on behalf of the United States of America. I thank you.
So long, by the way, before I run off, we'll be back on the air on Wednesday between 7 and 9. So if you can show up on our Zoom this week, send me an invite or send me an email. I'll send you an invite. Send me the email to jtater2@yahoo.com.
You got your Zoom? You got your Zoom tomorrow night?
Zoom tomorrow night.
Okay.
Following week, we're going to be at Nicholas, I think.
Cool. I can come on tomorrow night. Actually, tomorrow night I'm taking a class on bees tonight because I'm redoing my hives. So I'm doing bee class tonight, but tomorrow night I'll be available. And there goes John again. Clearly, they don't want us talking. So bye, John. We'll see you. Oh, there you go. We'll see you next week, and thank you so much. There you go.
Hey.
How you doing?
All right. How are you?
Good. I didn't do my little jazzy intro there, so just us. But thanks for coming on today. How did it work out? I know you had a doctor's appointment last week and such, and then you've been up in front of Congress doing all sorts of things.
Yeah.
What event you been on?
And we just got back at like 1 a.m. from a conference. So yeah, we're tired.
It's like here's Courtney. I'm here.
I'm here barely, but I'm here.
And you're fabulous.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I don't know, going to Congress has been pretty discouraging. Yeah, it's been pretty disappointing. They're definitely like really set on pushing these things through. So, and through whatever means necessary, which is
that's okay. Let them break the law. My guess is that the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, will get in there and clean house massively, and bye-bye to Gitmo, you all go.
Well, this is local. So, I mean, this is state. So I don't know. The system is really, really corrupt, and they're very much aligned with it is a global agenda that's been in the works for such a long time. This is why I go through the history of things, because people don't know the history, and these things are not new. Like, so when you look at what they're doing, you can start to see how this plan has been laid out for decades, really longer than decades. But I mean, some of the things, like particularly the school choice agenda, Charlotte Iserbyt was warning about it back in the 80s under Reagan. Like, she was a whistleblower under Reagan. And you try to explain that to these people, and they mock you. They tell you they're the good guys because they're the Republicans. And that's exactly the game they're playing. They're working these different like narrative arcs and these different marketing terms through the right so that people are, deceived. So they can target the left, with certain things, and they can target the right. But ultimately, they're going towards the New World Order. It's the same agenda.
Well, we had the proposals on the last election here in Michigan, and they were so deceptive. And who was quiet? The Republicans.
Yeah,
there was not enough noise on this to actually educate people. So this isn't one party. I mean, I get sick of people demonizing the Democrats, but I'm going to tell you what, you've got flat out Democrats who are Marxists, and you've got Republicans that are Marxists.
Yep.
Only they are trying to sell everybody that they look like good guys. And it's the same thing that, say, like Disney did and some of the other entities out there. If you looked into the Bass family and then the Rankin Bass, that's a little bit crazy when you get into that. The major shareholder in Disney was the Bass family, who's down in Houston, who was in with the Bushes, who else is down there? Oh, I don't know, Kenneth Copeland. Let's just go piss everybody off here. It's like in Houston. And see what the connections are there. And who else in Michigan was connected, and I think with Kenneth Copeland, because I heard her say it out of her mouth, Brother Copeland, and that would be Bernadette Smith.
Wow.
So sorry to say that, guys, but I think we need to dig into people a little bit and find out. But I mean, I heard it out of her mouth, calling him Brother Copeland. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I've got some real issues with anyone that parades that way.
Of course. Yeah. I agree. Absolutely. There was like a leak on Twitter. I put it in one of my last episodes, but there was a leak on Twitter where they Phil, I don't know his full name, but he then did a follow-up to it, but they caught And
Phil
I don't know who it is.
Godlowski. I call him Phil
there you go.
Godlowski is what I spell his name, but it's Lewski because
Uh-huh.
he stole. I've got an axe to grind against this guy. He
Oh.
stole my videos that I took at a General Flynn event and
Oh.
was calling out Bernadette Smith's husband, Reverend Phil Smith, very nice person.
Okay.
And he called him out and said it tried to lead people astray and say that General Flynn called him out because he was there. Took my videos, put him on his channel, and said, "See, General Flynn is giving me a shout out, giving me props." And I'm like, "You lying little." And so I put it out there, and I'm like, "I'm not letting this lay until you, Phil Godloserski, decide to put it out there that you stole my videos. You disrespected General Flynn, not only my friend, but a very good man. And you took credit for something that you misled people with. And you need to come forward and say it." So then he made me mad enough that I went ahead and I got the number for the gal that he raped when she was under 15. And I talked to Bree. And I got all the papers. And the text messages they sent back and forth. I haven't really put this out there too much because he kind of laid low. But after I called him out on it, he puts a text out with my picture on it, said, "I wouldn't vote for Donna Brandenburg. She's a bad choice out there to all these people." And I'm like, "Oh, honey, you just started a war. You will not win."
Oh
and
my God.
like, yeah, he actually did that to his 4 million CARP followers who think he's a good guy and who have not looked at the what's actually out there. And I'm going to get a hold of Nick because I've talked to him on email. He's the one from Good Lion Productions that put a video together on him. There's some amazing people out there in Telegram on the chats.
Right.
And, I was supposed to be gone Thursday and Friday. You know what? I'm going to try to get a hold of Nick and play that video on. In fact, since you brought it up, let's just do this a minute because I'm gonna go ahead and put this out here.
Okay.
See if we can put it out here. So go ahead and say what you have to say because
I was just gonna say he did get a really good video. It was an audio of, but we don't know who it is. I suspect it's Pat Marsh, but going around basically and telling them that if they didn't, fall in line, that their political career was over.
Oh, and he threatens everybody. I'm like, screw you, Phil.
No. Phil caught the footage of this. I mean, this was good. He did a good job, honestly. This was really, this was great footage that he got. And then he got the follow-up to it. But I was there at the subcommittee meeting. And at the subcommittee meeting, this is why I suspect it was Pat Marsh, because he was going around to each of the legislators whispering in their ear. And it does seem like they broke their own rule by having a pro tem come in, sit in on the meeting, and then vote to have the extra vote. So it does look like they used, one, extra votes, and then also an intimidation tactic. 2 of them, just said present. They didn't vote one way or the other. So then it ended up being a 6-2. And it was really, I don't know what's wrong with me this morning. I'm blanking on his name, but he was the one Democrat who was really fighting it, and he was phenomenal. His questions were great. He was very polite, very respectful, but he really pushed. He did not let up, and he asked really, really great questions. So that's the problem, is they're positioning this as a left-wing take to be against school choice. And then that was the argument they were having with me when I went into the individual meetings. They were telling me that, we're the Republicans, we're for this, this is good. And I don't know why you're fighting us. And I told them, I don't care if it has an R or a D in front of it. If you're restricting parental rights, if you're expanding funding, if you're increasing taxes, if you're increasing allocation of tax spending, if you are limiting freedoms, if you're increasing private-public partnerships, then I don't really care whether this is coming from the Republicans or the Democrats. Like, I'm not for it. And the game that they play is that they do these caption bills, so it doesn't really say anything. And then they tell you, oh, you can't be against this. We don't have the verbiage yet. And I'm like, okay, you're stalling on the verbiage. Even though legislators didn't, they promised the public would have it 7 days beforehand. And we didn't have it at all. And then in that subcommittee meeting, the legislators didn't even have it till something like 11 hours before is what they were saying. So very few of them even had a chance to really fully read it, let alone digest it. And so then they argue with you, telling you that it's all about the verbiage. Like, first of all, you're stalling on the verbiage and you're intentionally making it so that people don't have a chance to really digest it and rebut it. But furthermore, I don't care what the verbiage says. I reject the premise. The whole premise is tied to this agenda they literally in the documents in the 80s said the whole goal of this is to put every child into a computer. This is all about creating a globalized workforce. And they're trying to train children through technology at a very, very young age, because it's much easier to get the future generations if they've already groomed the children from a young age. And right now, the people who have the most freedom, the most outside of the system, they're the least tracked, traced, and controlled, are the homeschool children. And that's really the goal, is to capture them. So that's what this is all about. But it's just very disheartening to see how corrupt the system is, because they are so determined to get it in. And I don't think they even fully understand what it is they're pushing.
Well, you know what? In it's like Michigan, Whitmer, it was Nessel that was approving of warrantless search of homeschoolers' houses. That came out a few weeks ago. So this is a concerted effort. You watch when something comes out in one area. Watch, it's like a ripple effect across the pond, and then all of a sudden one will come out, and then it goes. Well, it's unconstitutional, which means that they are agreeing to in a de facto office is instituting unconstitutional laws. The whole thing is illegal.
It's totally. And they keep telling me that, first of all, they act like they're going to be in office forever, because they're like, well, as long as I'm in office, if they don't take the money, then there's no strings attached. And like, well, first of all, if you look at every other state that has implemented these policies, that is not true. So why are we to believe that suddenly, when you
suddenly
do it,
we're always going to find our altruism and we're going to do
exactly. Yeah. And then they also said, well, as long as I'm in office, I promise, I'm going to make sure that, there's never any strings attached, that, you still have all your freedoms and, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, how long do you plan to be in office? Forever? Like, you are now laying the groundwork so that somebody after you can just implement, further tyrannical measures. So it's, it's very concerning. My issue with it is not just this issue. It's that I'm watching this happen. I'm watching two particular bills, and not just bills, but related to these particular issues, is I'm watching the school choice and then the land grab. And on both of them, the land grab seems to be having a little bit more pushback. And I think that's really thanks to Senator Frank Nicely. He's the one who had called me in to speak on the NACs to do that presentation. He's wonderful, but I think he's done a really good job of pushing back. So I think some of that has gotten at least slower, derailed, slowed down. But it does look like they're just doing they're implementing all of these bills that, even if they don't look nefarious on the face of it, I know enough about the history of the agenda, so I can see that they're just they're just creating infrastructure and laying groundwork. Like one of them, and actually I met him. I didn't realize he was the one who created the bill, but I was saying how that he was like, "Oh, I met you. You presented for the subcommittee," and I said yes, and I said, well, there's two bills that really need to be stopped. And one was the conservation, they're calling it agricultural easements. And then the other one is the foresting bill. And he said, oh, I wrote that one. And I said, okay, well, it's really terrible. It needs to be killed. And he said, well, there's the conservation bill, and people are confusing the two. They're intermingling them. They're, intertwining them. And I said, no, they're not related, but they're equally bad. They both need to be stopped. And
why are they spending so much time writing new bills when they can't even manage the ones that we have that need to be struck because they are in violation of the Constitution, the highest law in the land? And I never hear anybody talking about nullification, because they have absolutely the right to go in and start nullifying departments and all this. This is what they should be working for, is the constraint of the government, not adding more layers. And they seem to all of them be guilty of this.
I agree. I went to Chris Ann Hall's, she did a lecture on nullification. It was great. And a lot of our legislators were there, but they don't seem to be implementing it.
Do you know if she, because I reached out to her and I want to get her on here. So I actually did reach out to her and she responded to me and such, but she was traveling. So I'm going to try to get her on here because I love Chris Ann. She's amazing.
Awesome.
She is amazing.
Yeah.
And do you know if they taped that?
I don't know. I can ask. I'm in touch with her assistant right now because we're trying to schedule as well. We haven't been able to, but we're in the process of trying.
Let me see if we've got what is her it's Liberty. What's her website?
Oh, it is.
I'll just fill a break here because I was going to play part of that video, but
yeah, you can.
But yeah, I'll give him a break. So what is it? Her website?
I think it's chrisannhall.com.
There's a non-compliant. Let's see. We've got. She's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Liberty First Society.
Okay.
That's what it is. Here we go. And she's got all kinds of things on here, like the sheriff, non-compliance. Yeah, good gal. Really a good gal.
Yeah, she's great.
I don't know if she's got it up here or not. Let's see. We'll have to peruse this a little. Anyhow, there's Chris Ann Hall's site. Yeah, I think she is. I think she has Chris Ann Hall too. So she's got a couple of out there.
Yeah, and a lot of our legislators came, but it doesn't look like they've been doing anything with it. So, yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. So that's been interesting to watch. It's frustrating, really frustrating. I don't know what can be done about it.
It's frustrating because it's all talk, but then to do something, they're just not following through. And
it's not just that. They seem really determined just to, it's like either they're getting some sort of back deal, incentives, or they're being blackmailed, or I mean, they're just like hell bent on pushing through everything Governor Lee, puts through. So,
do you like Governor Lee?
Do I like him?
Yeah, as a governor.
No, I think he's terrible. He's a total globalist shill. I mean, everything he's pushing is aligned with the globalist agenda. And I think it would actually be better off if we had a Democrat governor and a Republican legislator, because then they're so stuck in this like false Hegelian dialectic where they think that if it's coming from a Republican, it's good. If it's from a Democrat, it's bad. And so everything that Lee tries to pass, they carry for him because he's a Republican. So he's wonderful. And that's what I was trying to explain to them. Like, I don't care about the R and the D. Like, these are little branding labels. I really don't care. What is the principle behind them?
They're a label of lies.
And it's not just lies. I mean, it's what is the agenda? What's the intention behind this? What's the impact of this? What are the goals? What is it actually doing? Is this shrinking the government? Is it protecting our inalienable rights? Or is it infringing upon our inalienable rights? Is it growing the government? Is it increasing government spending, increasing taxes? I mean, these are the questions, not like, does it have an R in front of it or a D? Like, I don't care about that. I don't care about it at all. George Washington told us that having a two-party system would be a loophole for foreign entanglement. And that's exactly what we have. And this is when I started to go through this last week, the Order of Skull and Bones. I mean, the whole thing is all about how they play both sides. I mean, this whole thing, he has a whole chapter on the order, how the order controls education. I'm going to see if I can find you the page this is literally like the whole section, how the order controls education. I actually the episode I'm releasing today was with my friend John Klesick. He wrote a book called School World Order, and he through writing that book became friends with Charlotte Iserbyt. I think I told you about this last time. And she is amazing. I mean, if you just watch some of her videos, I mean, she was truly a force, like very, very amazing lady. And he became friends with her through writing his book. And so he inherited when she passed in 2022, and he inherited like all these documents that she had, all the files, all these books that she had. And her father and her grandfather were members of Skull and Bones, and she was a whistleblower. She was a whistleblower on the BEST project under the Reagan administration. And that was all about how they were using the technology in education in order to data mine children and mind control them, essentially. I mean, those weren't the words like at the time, but that's essentially what it is. That is what they're doing. And now they're doing it through the SEL, which is the social emotional learning. But it's really interesting because when you start going through this research, it's like everything overlaps. You know, she would talk about the national training labs, which are working with the NEA, and how they did what was called sensitivity training. I've done a lot of work on Tavistock, and Tavistock actually created the national training labs under Kurt Lewin. And then most of the psychologists were working on the group training dynamics. This is like things like Estelin group therapy, which then became like the very popular one right now is Landmark Forum, but there are many of them all over the world, and they have these little offshoot types. And I've actually done two of them. I did one on the East Coast, I did one on the West Coast. They're exactly identical. In both of those, like at the very beginning of each time you walk into the room and when you leave the room, they play the song Imagine, have everybody hold hands. It's like a seance. It's communist brainwashing. And this is all because the whole principle behind it is when you do these kind of very intense group therapy sessions, then you've now revealed some of your most, intimate, darkest secrets. And these people all have leverage over you because now they know all this stuff about you. But not just that, but you feel vulnerable. So you strip some of your own individual identity, and that gets replaced by this group identity. And that was part of the that was by design, like the implementation of this. So Tavistock was part of the creation of organizational psychology, the field of organizational psychology, and they used all of these tactics. But she talks about the national training labs, working with the NEA, and doing sensitivity training. Now, sensitivity training, they use it in corporation, and it's all the DEI stuff and all of that is under that, all the woke stuff. But back then they called it brainwashing. They actually called it brainwashing back then.
Wow. I had a friend that worked for the city of Grand Rapids, and they required everyone to go into sensitivity training for white privilege. Yeah. And it is so stupid. That is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, because she has a mixed racial family. And this woman looked at her as she came in and she goes, well, I'm from a mixed racial family. How can this, I don't really care. She goes, right. You're privileged just because you're white. And I'm like, man, why didn't you tell her to shove it and walk out the door? You're right. Trying to get a better job than what the city can provide you with, Totally. And it's too bad. But, and I'm going to just tell everybody out there, don't put up with this crap. You don't need to put up with it. This is absolutely discrimination.
Of course. Yeah,
it's horrible. Don't let them silence you.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but I was just saying like that you see all the overlap because she never mentions Tavistock. She doesn't mention any of those groups. She talks about the national training labs and how they were working with the NEA. And she talks about the sensitivity training, and that was Fred Emery, who was an Australian psychologist who worked under Tavistock. But yeah, and I was saying how they talk about in this book, she had a lot of the records for Skull and Bones because her father and grandfather were members, and so she had like the little black book. So she actually helped Anthony Sutton, collect the information that.
That's Charlotte that did that.
Mm-hmm. Charlotte Iserbyt. And in this book, he talks about how they use the Hegelian dialectic, that is, because ultimately, whether it's coming from the left Hegelians or the right Hegelians, the same shared worldview is that the state equals God, and that they're trying to create an all-powerful state because state is God, and that humans can only achieve freedom through submission to the state. And that's what you see. So when I go in there, and I actually confronted one of the legislators, because I heard that he had, I think I did share this already, but I had heard that he called me out like for being bad. He was like, the lady in the black fur, he didn't know my name, is bad and she's not allowed back in here. And so I know. And I called. I'm like, well, I didn't do anything to warrant that. And I don't think they can say that unless, there's a real reason. Like
what's the grounds?
Right. What grounds? Exactly.
There was no grounds.
No grounds at all. And so I called him and I said, I heard that you have some problems with me and you spoke ill of me, and I'd like to know why. I thought we had a great conversation. And of course he denied it. And then, after a while, because I pushed him, and he said, well, I did hear that I don't know if it was you, but I heard that I was called a rhino. And I didn't tell him this, but I did say it was definitely not me. But I didn't tell him the reason. I would never say that because I don't think they're rhinos. They're doing their job. The Republicans are playing controlled opposition for the left. That's their job. So I don't use the term rhino. I fundamentally reject the premise of a rhino because it's not Republicans in name only. The Republicans are doing exactly what they're designed to do. They're designed to be the controlled opposition for the left. And that's exactly what this talks about. I mean, it talks about how they will use both sides in order to advance the same agenda.
All right. So now you got me. Now you got me needing to buy that. So let me get it.
Yeah, it's great.
America's secret agenda, right? America's secret agenda, right?
America's secret establishment.
Number 1 on Amazon. Okay. Let's see. All right. I'm gonna get it. There are people that are like, they're watching our Amazon purchases. There's a new article that came out, and I'm like, oh, I'm sure they got a list a mile long on my purchases because it's all yay, go America.
Right. Yeah, it's a good book. I mean, so is Charlotte's. I definitely recommend Charlotte's as well.
Okay, let's do the deliberate dumbing down of America. Okay, I might as well get that one here there too. I'm a research nerd,
Yeah. So
here we go. Oh, that's a little more expensive.
Charlotte's?
Yeah.
Yeah, the real edition is really hard to find, like the full unabridged.
Oh, the full unabridged. So I might have to look for that one a little bit. Let's see. Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. Let's see if we've got a real copy of it here. Looks like it's the right one. Traces the history. Doesn't say it's a. All right, let's try it. We've got one left.
Okay.
Just bought it. I'll take a chance on that one.
Okay.
All right, there we go. So now my library is increased.
Yes. Yes. And it's interesting. I asked John because I thought he might know, but in this book, he talks about the connection that he's saying that he feels. He mentions it in 2 places. In one place, he says that there's further research that needs to be done on the connection between the Illuminati and the Order of Skull and Bone. And then the next one, he makes it sound like he's already working on the book, and that he says the next book will outline the connection between them. And I asked him if he knew if there was like an unfinished book, that anybody found before he died. And it turns out that his publisher knew him. And he said he might have put some of that information in one of the other books. It was a book that by Sutton that I had not read. So I'm going to check that out. But he does draw some very interesting connections just with like the names that are involved. So there was 2 decades in between the two, but the agenda is definitely aligned. I mean, it's almost like, the exact same agenda. But he goes through some of the names. I've talked about Wilhelm Wundt, and he was known as like the father of psychology. And there's another really great book. I think I have it over there. It's tiny. This is called The Leipzig Connection. It's by Paolo Leone. It's also by Class, but I don't know why his name's not on it. But they coined that term, the Leipzig connection. This is where Wilhelm Wundt in the late 1800s taught all of these various. He created the field of psychology, and it was considered like biological psychology back then. This is where we get, like the Skinnerian method, Pavlovian method, and this is what has been implemented on education system. And that's a lot of the documents that Charlotte Iserbyt talks about, is how they're using this method of training children as opposed to educating them. And they're training them as if they're lab rats. And now they're doing it through technology. And
kind of critical thinking.
Exactly. And so it was through the Leipzig connection. He gave PhDs to people like William James, one of the first PhD students, and then he came over to the United States, and he's known as the American father of psychology. And then people like G. Stanley Hall, who was a mentor to John Dewey, and we know how instrumental John Dewey was with exporting the education system to the United States. But essentially, it was to create this Hegelian system. And they used both the left Hegelians, which was this very Engels and Marx, this scientific progress, scientism essentially. And then there's the right Hegelians, which was the Prussian model, which is the militaristic roots. This is the very ordered structure to train students to respond to the bell ringing and, the specific class times, and, very militarized system. But it was interesting, just the connections to the Illuminati. I'm going back to that page. Because Wilhelm Wundt himself had connections. His grandfather was Karl Casimir Kirchenrat Wundt, and he was known as Raphael in the Illuminati. So, like, everybody in the Illuminati had code names, and that was his code name. And then he goes through some of the others, and we know their code names from documents that they've left behind. I don't know if I read this, but Fichte, who was a very strong influence on Hegel, and he had Illuminati ties, and he was one of the first to come up with the concept of the League of Nations. Both him and Kant, although I would say Immanuel Kant was an idealist, and he saw it more of the way like von Hayek would see it, as a very good faith kind of a mediary between to prevent war, essentially. And it was Kant had a document for, like, perpetual peace. I don't remember the exact name of it, and that was his idea, was that there would be this kind of League of Nations that would help to preserve peace. Whereas Fichte had the idea, he said, as this federation spreads further and gradually embraces the whole earth, perpetual peace begins, the only lawful relation among states. He called it a declaration of interdependence and education for a global community. That was his document in 1976. And he says, we are committed to the idea of education for global community. You are invited to help turn the commitment into action and mobilizing world education for development of a world community. He also, in his document, it was called The Vocation of Man, he also said that the purpose of education is to completely eradicate critical thinking. So that was Fichte, and then let me see if I can find the one on the Illuminati. There were several connections between those two. I'll find that right here. So there was Pestalozzi.
Their intention is right out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Their the agenda is very aligned. It's to create essentially the New World Order. I mean, they called it many things before that, but
dominate other people and turn them into their little slaves.
Exactly.
It's a psychopath. You know, it's like, and unfortunately, we have psychopaths running the globe. They're running the globe. That's the system behind it, and they don't have the ability to care for human beings. I don't even know if they really are human beings anymore. You know, it's like you look at people that are like that, and you have to really wonder,
Right.
if, you know, what are we actually dealing with? What are we actually looking at?
Right.
And I think that's one thing that a lot of us are a little bit slow to speak about, but to a certain degree. I
Sure.
mean, you know, we're in a spiritual war right now. That means that we are definitely in a war between good and evil, and that's going to be entities. And, you know, the Bible clearly laid it out, whether people want to come to terms with it or not. The Bible's laid this out, that there are good entities and there are bad entities. And
Right.
unfortunately, they want to end humanity because we are God's creation.
Right.
And you look at their actions that they do, their actions are to sterilize people, to
Yep.
kill people, to eliminate people, and just only keep the drones. And those drones may be, you know, not necessarily human. Let's kill the DNA. Let's kill it all and see what we can
Right.
do. I'm not that worried about it because, you know, I'll just go there. I think God can restore and redeem anything. So they're on a failure mission. No matter how you cut the cake on this,
Right.
you know, you can sit there and mock God. You can think you're smarter than God, and
Right.
anybody can. But you know what? Papa created this entire universe, and they're part of it.
Right.
He's only gonna let the dogs go on the leash just so long before it's gonna come to an end. And
Right.
hopefully we've all made good choices and you know, been helpful in the situation rather than thrown in with them. And I'm afraid that, you know, from what we've seen, there's a lot of people that have thrown in with them.
Yeah.
And I think you lose your humanity after a while. You can't touch a child and be okay.
Right.
There are certain things that are going to lead to a demise of a human being.
Right.
And some of that we have a part in. Now, can God bring us back? He can. He can redeem anyone. You know, there's never an end to that.
Right.
And but we've got to be able to see things for what they are. Have you ever seen anybody that's demon possessed?
Have I ever seen anybody? And well, I don't know for sure, but
Oh, I have, and there was no mistake in it.
yeah.
And once you see somebody who is truly demon possessed, if you don't believe in it, that it happens,
Yeah.
take a deep breath,
Okay.
because it's one of those things that you will know beyond a shadow of a doubt. There's no mistake there. And I think that God sometimes gives people a little protection so they don't have to come face to face with it. I think the angels are helping us a little bit here, but honestly, it's one of those wake up calls that you never forget.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Not to be afraid of. You know, I hate to say it. It doesn't make me afraid. It pisses me off.
Right.
You know, it's like some people get afraid. I go right into anger, get the swords out. You know, it's time to take care of the demons, you know, but it's real.
What was it like when you saw that?
I've seen it many times. And I've got some great stories about you know, I've got some great stories. But I think if you can see one side, you can also see the other side, which kind of balances it out a little bit.
Sure.
But, yeah, that's a long story.
Okay.
And we'll go into it sometime. But
Okay.
I was actually in a church, and I didn't realize it that they had invited a group in. And I went in there, and the minute I got in there, I was just like, you know, shake it off. There's something really bad in here.
Right.
And I found out later that this group, because the pastor was an idiot, invited this group in, and part of their recovery was they did exorcisms. And so they brought people into the church who were actively demon possessed, and I didn't know it until after I left.
Right.
And it was a direct frontal attack on Donna Brandenburg.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was interesting, but it's an interesting story. And I don't know why some of us let's see, Leb says their eyes are black and they look right through you for one thing. Yeah, that's part of it. It certainly is. But yeah, the one woman turned around and I was about 10 feet away from her and she just whipped around and she was just all full of hate. Never laid eyes on me, but felt me walk up behind her.
Wow.
And it was they can't hold your gaze.
Yeah.
If you got the light of God in you. And so it's an interesting experience, but that's not the only time. So, but there's many, and I can go into a lot more depth of that.
Wow.
And that put me in contact with several people that actually do exorcisms.
Okay.
And you know, and understanding what you're actually seeing. Is it real? I can tell you with absolute certainty, personal experience, it is real. And if you look at what Jesus talked about hell a lot more than he did about heaven because he understood the risk.
Right.
Clear and present danger.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're
interesting. Yeah.
We do have the protection of God. There's definitely, you know, God definitely gives us his protection. And that's why we can walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
You better have the protection of God when you go into something like that, or it's going to be a severely unpleasant experience. It's unpleasant no matter how you do it, but it will be a severely unpleasant experience if you walk into something like that and you are not prepared for it.
Right. Right.
And the preparation, I always tell people that there's only 2 offensive weapons we have. And I'm just going to say it as a Christian. There's 2 offensive weapons that we have, and that's prayer. You can pray and you can quote scripture. And, you know, you got to kind of know it a little bit in order to quote it. But there's been a couple of times that I've had full on, and it's the craziest thing. I'll be able to quote scripture like it's coming out of a popcorn machine.
Right.
And I was like, I can't do that on a normal day. And so, you know, it's like I can, this is where it is, kind of, sort of. But, you know, I've done quite a bit of reading and study and such. But the recall, when you're in a situation like that, where it's literally God himself that's working through you, you will have recall that you can't do by yourself. And that's where you know that it's truly God working through you in those times.
Right.
But yeah, there was another one, a guy had worked for NASA, and that's an interesting story too. And I could talk a lot of stories that I know, but they're very tangible, and sometimes they're crazier than others.
Right. Oh, well, I'd love to hear them. That's maybe we'll do that one time.
Yeah, I think some of us, for some reason, you know, God gives us different abilities at different times. Doesn't mean that anybody doesn't have those same abilities, but he certainly will lead you through things when things. I guess that's why my faith is so strong too. It's like, you know, you see God working in so many different scenarios. You know that if you in fact are a child of God, things can happen. And, you know, good and bad happens to all of us alike. There's no 2 ways about it. You know, we're all subject to a lot of the same things. However, those things that can kill a soul will not come near you when you have the protection of God. You might have to face it, and it may not be pleasant. Right. But it's not as a threat. It's as they're in a threatened position at that moment in time.
Right. Right.
And that's I think I've heard you know, it's always interesting, but that's a long discussion. I can
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are really interested in that. I mean, I've seen visible angels.
Wow.
And I've you know, there's things, and there was no 2 ways about it when somebody got me through something when I was coming back with my adopted daughter. And man, absolutely, we got through. This is a long story, crazy story, but I turned around, and this guy that helped us, gone, and it was that quick. And there's nowhere he could have gone, and the way that he talked to me too was different.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, and it was a very hostile situation that we were in. There were 12 people that were killed where we were the week after we left. And I never felt afraid. It's
Right.
like, it's like you can go into all situations and never feel afraid because God is right here by our side.
Mm-hmm.
I think with all the negativity and the things that we see, people have to remember first and foremost, we are in a spiritual battle right now. Not everybody's going to necessarily make it through in real good shape.
Right.
That doesn't mean that God can't redeem and restore everything. But every single person out there is responsible for the people around you. And if you really want to make the world a better place, you got to stop some of this materialistic nonsense and realize that people around you are in serious need of help. I brought up somebody yesterday because I've taken a lot of flack on this. I've gotten called all kinds of names. I'm not enough of a Christian. I'm not a believer. I'm not for real, this, that, and the other thing. Well, I'm going to tell you, I was with, and I call him a kid because he's almost 30 and I'm 60, almost 61 here, and it's like, so everybody's in their 30s a kid, anybody that's
Right.
kids at this point in time,
Sure.
put the mittens on you and send you out to play or something like this. I got things to do. But he asked me, he came out to his mother, and I have never seen a more deranged individual in my life than this mother was in how she treated her son. And he was afraid. He said he came out before and she was for 2 weeks absolutely shrieking at him.
Wow.
And it was a horrible situation. It really was. And she told him, I wished I would have aborted you. Your dad only creates trash. You're, all of this stuff she said to her son. And yesterday I teared up because of it, because it was horrible. And so I just went there. He's a friend of one of my kids. And he asked me to, because I have the ability to love everybody. I really do. I mean, I'd agree with what they're doing. And when I come out, and I call people out there, like I did Pat Colbeck this morning, it's like, get a better plan. You're misleading people.
Yeah.
And so I'll come out and I'll say it, call them out. If somebody wants to turn around, we're in business. I can work with anybody. Right.
Right.
And I may not agree with what they do, but that's not for us. We're here to be helpful.
Right.
And so in all situations, to bring peace to situations, to bring love where there's none, to bring light, and try to help people, not to condemn them to hell. The minute we see them and say, get out, I only sit here with people that are like me. That is right there. So, he was really afraid. He said, I'm really afraid. He goes, I don't know, walking back into that house again, what she'll do. And I said, well, I'm not afraid of her. So if you want me to just be there, stand there, I'm not going to say a word. She came out of the house absolutely screaming at me.
Wow.
I'm just standing there doing nothing. I'm just trying to be another set of eyes so she doesn't kill her son, which she told that she wished she had. And so she called the cops. Yeah. And God has a sense of humor to all the self-righteous out there. He sent a lesbian police officer who got a quick look at the situation and she, of what was going on. And, it was a horrible situation. It was absolutely heartbreaking and horrible. And this is a woman that claims to be a God-fearing woman. No, she is a demented individual. Just like, you could say Republicans, they're not Republicans.
Right.
They're lying. And the police officer said, when we left, we were talking for a while and I just stood on the sidewalk. I'm like, he needed somebody the witness to at least keep her in check a little bit. And she takes a shot at me. Booyah, I go home quicker. I could care less. Live or die doesn't matter to me. Right. And, and so the police officer said, I had the same thing when I came to my parents and came out. And I understand there's a lot of heartbreak there when your kids don't do exactly what you raised them to do.
Right.
And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. We live in a very, very convoluted world where everyone has been subject to this. There's no one that's escaped it. And there's no one that hasn't had a violation here or there. It's impossible. So anyhow, she said, I left home for 2 weeks and I went and I lived somewhere else for 2 weeks because she said I couldn't come home. And she said, this is why the suicide rate is so high. And It's like, I'm sorry. So are we going to condemn people so that they never have a chance to know God, to know his mercy, his forgiveness, and his help when we're in a bad situation?
Right.
Are we going to just sit there and contribute to the destruction of human beings? I'm not going to throw in with that. And I don't care how many words and how many, titles that people want to call me. I mean, I've been attacked viciously over this.
Right.
I had somebody unload a 45 in a gun stall after, and I wrote a police report up on this and submitted it. The judge refused it.
Wow.
on the attacks that I had. And then at the end of it, unloaded a 45 in a stall, turned around, looked at the camera, and went just like this.
Wow.
And I'm like, fine, I'm not changing my viewpoint on this.
Right.
There's human beings that are behind this, just like the kids in school. It's like the kids, and I'm going to call them kids, the kids that go to college that are in the indoctrination camps.
Mm-hmm.
So do we condemn them? Do we condemn people for being captured assets of a very evil agenda? Right. And these people are evil. I mean, if you ever look into Satanism, I have a lot of it. There's a West Michigan Satanist club here. You want to see like blood orgies? They do it. I've got pictures of it.
Oh,
and drinking out of goats' skulls, the blood and everything else. I mean, this is for real, people. And this is not a story. And you talking about the Illuminati, this is not a story. This is for real. And all you got to do is get out of your churches, open your eyes, and go find out what's really going on. And you're going to see this is exactly what Jesus dealt with. And it was Caesarea Philippi was the best example of it. They had the goat cult. There was 4 cults that were doing rituals in front of a hole in the side of the cliff, which they considered to be hell. And he looked down at this. Well, there was all forms of things going on down there. And what was his sorry to bore you.
You're not boring me at all. I'm not feeling well.
His words were you were tired too. You're up all night. Yeah. But his words were that the gates of hell shall not prevail against you. Mm-hmm. Run to the fire and take no prisoners. And don't do it. You go forward boldly without making excuses for being a child of God. And, we're not there to destroy humanity. We're there to help humanity. Right. And it's pretty horrible situation. Yeah. And it's not lessened. It's not gotten any better.
Right.
And I told this guy, I'm like, I'll be your mom. Nobody deserves this kind of abuse. Nobody deserves this kind of abuse that continues on and on. I mean, this woman screeches. I mean, it's like, if you want to see a classical witch, this woman screeches and running around like this. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's painful. Yeah. And the government's behind turning people into these type of people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
They're all involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should absolutely get into going into demon possession sometime, because I think people are interested in it. And
I'd be really curious. Yeah.
And angels too, because you see one side, you see the both.
Right. Yeah. That would be great. So, yeah.
So sorry to derail this, but
no, it's okay. Yeah.
I mean, there's the schools are involved in. I'm going to tell parents right now, pull your kids out of these godforsaken schools.
But that's the problem. I mean, that's the reason why I'm going through this history. Is the reason why I'm, fighting these bills, is because they're making it so that even if you pull them out, you really don't have control. I mean, here in Tennessee, like in some other states, you still, if you homeschool, you're outside the system. But in Tennessee, you're not. They have 3 categories of homeschooling. One is independent homeschooling. Sorry, one is I forgot what they call it, but it's basically online homeschooling. That's not independent at all, because it's a curriculum they give you.
It's another indoctrination.
Exactly. And then there's what they call independent homeschooling, which you still are subject. You still have to take all of these standard tests. You still have like all the wellness check, the medical check. You're still under regulation, so that you're already under the government system. And then there's the what they call Category 4. And these are the ones that have the most freedom, but they're the religious affiliated schools. And these are the ones they're really targeting. But even they're not really free because they're under these umbrellas, which are basically like a private-public partnership, and they have ties and regulations through
all of it is, and
government.
it's all about control because they want the children. That's what they want.
Yeah.
And so absolutely. So I homeschooled my kids, and this was back in a time where there was the DeYoung case was going on in Michigan, and they were threatening all of us with putting us in jail and taking our children away. And the homeschool legal defense stepped up, and we all, and I'm going to go back to what John and I were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Everyone has to step up. We shut down the Capitol switchboard with the amount of people that called in on this unconstitutional bill. And within 3 days, we shut it down for 3 days.
Wow.
They had no calls because they were so overwhelmed with calls by parents, grandparents, people that are saying, no, not as long as I'm alive. We are not going to stand for this. And it is unconstitutional. They do not own your children. And you need to tell them, you need to first of all quote the law, quote the law. That's what John and I are doing. That's why we're not winning. People are not going back to the law to tell them you violate the law, you get removed.
Right.
And lay it out to them specifically, but stand your ground, because what I can tell you is that if you stand your ground on something you believe in, God himself will give you help. You will be able to walk right through your enemies, and you'll walk right up through the middle of them. If you are truly relying on God, and I'm going to stand with that. It's like by the blood of Christ, I'm going to tell you right now, he can cover everything. He covers our sins, and he can walk us right through the middle of anything, and they won't even see you. I did it. I've seen it. I did it when I came back from India. I was pulled out of a line and I'm going to tell you, an angel that I saw, and I walked past at least there were probably in the 2 lines on the right side of me, and there were more lines. There were probably at least 500 people, and he called me out, and I was like trying to ignore him. I was like, can't possibly be me and all these people. I'm a nobody,
Right.
I mean, I've got a nobody after I'd had my luggage kicked through at Schiphol Communist Airport into the Netherlands, and it was crazy. And so I walk right. I'm like, me, and he's like, yeah. And I mean, I'm going to hell in the back of the line here. I'm like, who am I? Why does he have walked right past everybody, walked right up to the line, and I'm like going, okay, this is where I get deported back because we were missing a paper. And it's a long story. And he grabbed my papers and he's like, give them to me. And I go through the papers like this. And I'm like, okay, this is where we get back on the airplane and go back to India again. Right. And he never looked at me. He just kept looking at me, real gruff. And so he goes, okay, now you go back to that line over there. And I'm like, okay, I think he just cut 2 hours off of customs and immigration here. So I turned around to leave, and I got about 15 feet away. And he said, you get back here. And I'm thinking, oh no, this is where it is. And I get back in line. He says, give me your papers again. He goes, I'll process it right now, and you can go home.
Wow.
And he just stood there and he just looked at me a minute with so much compassion and love in his eyes. He stamps my papers. I walk past him. Nobody saw this happen. I turned around and I wasn't 10 feet away, and he's gone. He's absolutely gone. And there was nowhere for him to go.
Wow.
And I'd been up for 72 hours straight trying to get back into the country with a very, very sick child. I was puke head to toe. And because she was so sick, and I needed to see a doctor. And it's like God sent an angel, and we walked right through it. And to all you homeschoolers out there, or anything we have to go through, you put your trust in God and you just walk. Whatever he asks you to do, go and follow him, because he will make a way in ways you can never imagine. And you'll never see the true grace of God, the mercy of God, and the protection of God unless you're willing to jump in and follow him without reserve.
Right.
Yeah. That's kind of cool, isn't it?
That's beautiful. Yeah.
It's actually a longer story than that. It goes back to being in India and somebody trying to figure out a way to jail me. And and it was crazy. And we got her back here. She had to have some surgery because she couldn't see. One of her eyes was falling back into her head because her head was smashed. And it was a crazy time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She recovered. She's okay.
Well, she's very disabled. She had her head smashed in a train accident where her mother died at her side. And so she was in bad shape. She had worms crawling out of her body. She had boils all over the place.
Oh my God.
They said she was the worst case they ever saw. She couldn't hear, she couldn't see, and now she's got a very happy life, and
Wow.
she's got her own dog. She's got a pony, and
Oh,
a lot of people that very much love her, but she struggles. I mean,
sure.
there was so much damage done, and that's part of bearing with people. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to struggle. There's so much damage that have been done to everyone out there that you have to have the discernment to say, this is the action that needs to stop.
Right.
Stop the action, but love the person until the person goes ahead and starts doing damage to other people and gets joy out of it. That's what psychopaths do. They cannot. A psychopath will never, ever, ever be rehabilitated. It's impossible. They will, because they enjoy hurting people. Apart from an act of God. Now, God can change it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not likely in most situations. And it's not likely because we don't have enough workers that are strong enough to know how to stand with someone who's a true psychopath. It doesn't always work, but you got to be a little tough because they are horrific to be around.
Yeah.
A true narcissist is the same thing as somebody who is a sexual abuser as well as a psychopath. It's the same category.
I think sometimes narcissists are worse because it can be very subtle.
They study people and they know how to pull your.
Well, it's not just they study people. I mean, I think that it can be very subtle, and they really have no clue that they think they're wonderful, and they really have no idea that they're doing any harm. And so it's this. They have such a bubble and such a shield around them. My fiance always says like they're the last to know they did anything wrong. And it is true.
Care. That's the problem, is that they have no empathy.
That's not, and for a true narcissist, there's a difference between a psychopath and a narcissist. Yeah, and that's not entirely true that they don't care. They don't get it. They can't process it because they're so deluded by their own sense of their self that they really don't have. A lot of them, I mean, oftentimes there's other things that get coupled. A lot of times narcissists are also borderlines, and those can be even more difficult and challenging because they don't really have a sense of self. So now they've got like this illusion, and really with the narcissist, they're so consumed with their own. There's different types. There's the malignants, there's the wounded, right? And in many ways, I actually think that wounded narcissists are they can be much more abusive. The impacts of dealing with them, because they're so hurt and they're so consumed by the hurt and by the their wants, their needs, their desires, that they really can't step outside themselves to see what they're doing, the impact that it may have, how other people are being affected. They're consumed. It's all consuming. And the reaction, the ramifications really of that, I think for somebody who's close, they become this, usually they become the codependent because they're constantly trying to fix it. And they feel like whatever they're doing is causing it. But the reality is that's not. Whereas malignant narcissists, in some ways, I think are easier to deal with because, it's kind of like the devil, you know what you're dealing with. And it's often very outwardly, it's much more clear. Whereas the wounded narcissist, often everybody else, like the person, who's not closest to them, people around them often think that they're wonderful. They're,
the passive aggressive ones.
Because they need attention so desperately that they tend to be there are people who love bomb. Like, have you heard that term? They're overly flattering. They tend to be very charming, very, they tend to be gregarious. They flatter other people because they want that attention back. So a lot of times people around them think that they're just wonderful, but people closest to them are dealing with, very toxic behavior. So it can be
I
very
dealt with
toxic.
somebody close and personal, and that's was like that, but both sides. But what's really amazing to me is when they're like, you're a narcissist to everybody in their friend circle.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that's the first clue that the person saying it is a narcissist.
He's a narcissist, yeah.
The ones that are accusing everyone are the ones that are usually the most guilty. Did you ever notice that too? And that's a real satanic characteristic, is the blame game.
Yeah.
Blame. We've always got to look for somebody to blame when something goes wrong. You know what? That's the time to be thankful. Okay, something went wrong. Okay, what am I supposed to learn from this?
Right.
Guaranteed. I'm going to guarantee you things are going to go wrong. It's just part of life. So, it's like whose fault is it? Maybe, who knows, who cares? What did you learn from it?
Right.
And what are you going to do to be able to cope the next time it comes up? How are you going to help somebody else? What are you going to change so that you don't stumble on the same rock?
Right.
What did you learn from this? It's not a negative, it's a positive. Right. And just embrace it, learn, and move on, and don't think about it again.
Right. Sure.
But yeah, that's really interesting. So I'm the founder of Grief and Loss Today, Advances in Hospice, Advances in Bereavement. And I worked with the grief therapy. I had a gal that worked with me for years, and she had a master's in social work, and she was a volunteer coordinator for like 30 years. And we did a lot of work with grief responses and how people feel grief. And then we got into doing, we were gonna write a whole series on narcissism and have it be like side by side with the victim, so you can see it from both sides, because both of us had experience with that besides studying it. And Sam Vaknin does a really good job. He is a narcissist. He claims to be a narcissist, and he tells people how he thinks.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
So it's really interesting to listen to people who are diagnosed. This is a diagnosis. This is not something you say to somebody on the street. Oh, you're a narcissist. No. You just outed yourself as a narcissist. It is a clinical diagnosis. It's a diagnosable problem. And, nobody out there that wants to claim this is qualified to sit there and spout out just because they're looking for an excuse to, for whatever.
It's become very like cliche, and people use it to label people that they don't like, or they're frustrated with.
You just
almost doesn't mean anything anymore. Yeah,
you just play the blame game, and you outed yourself. But yeah, Sam is really interesting to listen to.
Yeah, it sounds it.
I've got his book, and I've had it for I don't know how many years now, probably 15 or 16 years ago is when I kind of, started looking into this. It's really very, very interesting.
Sure.
And very hurtful, but it's one of those things, though. You go right back to the blame game. What happened in Genesis? We went right, with the apple, not my fault. The woman made me eat it. Not my fault. This person told me to do it. It's always somebody else's fault instead of, I screwed up. I guess I'm in the wrong. What do I need to do to make it right? Please forgive me. I won't do it again. Only appropriate response. Only one.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. No.
So, I could sit here and talk to you all day.
I know, all day.
I could sit and we could go on all day,
For sure.
I love everything you share. I just bought 2 of the books. I try to buy books that you put out there, because these are areas you have so much knowledge in. It's like John. It's great to get in and talk with people that you don't know. You don't know 10% of your your pinky finger of what other people know, because that's how we help each other.
Absolutely,
and I'm so thankful for your knowledge and all the studying and the work you've done. I mean, you are amazing.
Thank you. So are you. I appreciate everything you do.
I'm glad we're friends.
Me too. Me too.
So it's amazing. It's amazing how God's brought us all together, and
for sure.
Love you to pieces.
You too.
Are you ready to say prayers here and
yes.
final day? Okay.
Yes.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very, very much for everyone out there. We know everyone is hurting and trying to find their way through this little maze called life, and we're doing our best. And we ask that you would equip us, guide us, and lead us in doing the right things, saying the right things, and continuing to try to follow you. We want to follow you, and we need you to guide us and lead us in every single thing that we do. We ask your favor upon everyone. I ask your blessings upon Courtenay and John in wonderful ways that just bring miracles every day of knowledge of you, of a relationship with you, and your leading, and the knowledge of how much they are loved and how precious they are in your sight, that you just adore them and you put them in this position and you called them for a time such as this. I'm so thankful for everyone out there. Everyone was called for a time such as this to be a light in a very dark world. And we're thankful for all that you've given us, both the things that are challenges and things that are easy, that make us happy, because we're learning, and we're learning what we don't want to do, what's bad, and we're learning what's good, just as a child would, because we're your children, and we're thankful for that. I ask that you give everyone out there healing and strength of mind and discernment and wisdom, that they can see through the nonsense that's out there, the stuff that's out there to lead us astray by some very evil entities. And we ask that you would confuse every plan of the enemy and let them know, put them on notice that the kingdom of God is coming and their time is short, and we're not backing down, we're not conceding, and we're not afraid, because you're walking with us, before us, behind us, around us, and inside of us, your Holy Spirit. We thank you so much for being with us this day and every day. We love you so much. You're a great friend to us, our Heavenly Father, and our Redeemer, our Restorer, our leader, our banner in all fights, our provider in all ways. We trust you entirely, no reservation. We have total faith in you. It's not in our knowledge. It's not in our strength. It's your strength that you see us through. It's your knowledge. It's what you show us and lead us through. And we love you. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too.
So there we go. So let's go out and make this world a better place, guys. We got a big job ahead of us.
We do.
So I don't know about you, but I feel like God appointed me as mom of the whole damn world. So I'm going to get out there and do that, do it right, come back and do the right thing. And then we'll sit down and have dinner together. So anyhow, God bless you all. God bless you whom you love. God bless America. Make it a great day. Go out there with boldness and be who God created you to be, because everyone's unique. You're special. There's no one out there that can be you. You are a unique, wonderful individual, and, fearfully and wonderfully made and loved more than you can ever imagine. If you feel like you're alone, that you don't matter, those are thoughts that are not coming from God. Just chase it away and say, I don't believe that. That's a lie from hell. I know God made me. I know God put me here at this time. And believe it, it's true. And we will see you tomorrow. And my travel plans for Thursday and Friday got canceled, so I'm going to try to be days. So should be on Thursday and Friday this week too. So at any rate, we're just going to keep coming back here and hammering out the truth. And so you guys have a great day, and you're loved.
Yes.